Welcome to The Explainer. In the wild world of Washington politics, sometimes everything can hinge on just one single vote. Today, we're going to break down how a razor-thin margin in the House of Representatives is sparking this huge, explosive battle over the Jeffrey Epstein files. So let's jump right in. This whole story, and I mean all of it, really boils down to this one number, 1. That's the tiny one-vote majority that House Speaker Mike Johnson has to work with. Talk about a political tightrope. Any little gust of wind and the whole thing could come crashing down. And believe me, things are about to get very windy. So you might be asking, how does a one-vote margin lead to a massive showdown over the Epstein files? Well, here's how we're going to connect the dots. We'll start with the speaker's shaky position, then dive into the fight for these files, look at a very strange alliance, and see how it all leads right back to Donald Trump. Okay, first things first. To really get what's happening, you have to understand just how vulnerable the speaker is and who he's tied himself to. Wow. This quote from Speaker Johnson, it really says everything, doesn't it? He's basically broadcasting that his speakership is welded to Donald Trump. And according to the source material, that means any weakness, any crack in his authority isn't just his problem. It becomes a direct reflection on Trump's own power and control over the party. And that brings us right to the heart of this whole thing, the absolutely explosive fight to get the full, unredacted Epstein files. This is the issue that's putting the speaker's fragile leadership and that tiny one-vote margin to the ultimate test. At its core, this whole thing is a fight for justice. The source commentary we looked at points out that the files we've seen so far are just a total mess of black ink and redactions. And get this, in some cases, they're not even protecting the survivors, but they are hiding the names of some very powerful people. It's a situation that has politicians on both sides of the aisle saying, wait a minute, we need answers. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. This high-stakes battle has created one of the most unusual and frankly powerful partnerships you're going to find in Washington right now. Yeah, this is not your typical political fight. The people leading this charge for transparency are a super unlikely duo, Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Ro Khanna. Think about that. They're crossing party lines, working together to demand the full story. It just goes to show you how this issue is bigger than the usual political games. But as you can probably guess, when you start shaking things up this much, you face some serious pushback. Representative Marshy is getting hit with everything. We're talking alleged threats of criminal investigations, a massive super PAC ad campaign launched against him. I mean, the source material makes it pretty clear that somebody with deep pockets really doesn't want these files getting out. So is Massey backing down? Nope, not a chance. In fact, it seems like all these threats are just making him dig in his heels even more. And by doing that, he's creating a massive headache for his own party's leadership, which, you guessed it, brings us right back to that tiny one-vote margin. So let's look at the actual strategy this alliance is using to force the issue. They have a very clear plan, and it includes what you might call the nuclear option. Their target is very specific, Pam Bondi. She's a key ally of Trump who, according to the source, is now the one overseeing the Epstein files at the Department of Justice. So they're putting all the pressure they can directly on her to get the full, unredacted story out there. And they have a step-by-step plan to make it happen. They're starting with the normal stuff, requesting meetings, filing lawsuits, but they are not afraid to play hardball. If the Department of Justice doesn't cooperate, they are ready to pull the trigger on contempt proceedings, basically declaring that she's defying Congress. And they're even threatening impeachment. Okay, so a messy congressional fight over some documents. Why does a former president care so much? Why is this a potential crisis for Donald Trump and his entire camp? It really all comes down to control. I mean, just imagine it, a big televised impeachment of a key ally with a speaker who is completely powerless to stop it. That would be a total political nightmare for Trump. It would just shatter that image of strength and command that he's worked so hard to build. And this, of course, raises the million-dollar questions. With so much on the line, what, or maybe who, is being protected here? Why go to such extreme lengths to keep these files buried? And that's really the battle at the heart of this entire story. On one side, you have this massive push for total transparency, a demand to expose what they see as a huge scandal. And on the other side, you have this coordinated effort to downplay it, to bury it, to just pretend it's old news. It's a fight for the narrative, and the stakes could not be higher. So, this whole crazy situation really boils down to one powerful question for all of us. In a political world that feels like it's defined by party loyalty above all else, can a quest for justice, just one issue, actually break through all of that? It's a question that's going to define this fight and maybe, just maybe, the future of our politics. Yep, it's this one, the sign-in page. This simple, clean page is the gateway to our entire digital lives, and we pass through it constantly without even thinking about it. But believe me, there's a whole world of thought, design, and security packed into this seemingly simple screen. And this is where you gotta shift your thinking a little bit. We're not just looking at a form to fill out. This is a digital doorway. And that little phrase, use your Google account, that's the welcome mat. It's inviting you into your digital home, a single entry point for your email, your photos, your documents, your whole online world. And that change in perspective is a huge deal, right? The move from a simple form to a universal gateway is what makes this so incredibly powerful. One account, one single doorway, and your entire digital life is right there. Of course, with that kind of power comes a whole lot of trust. Now, you can't have a doorway without a key, and our digital doorway is no different. Except in this world, our key isn't cut from metal, it's made of information. We call it our digital identifier, that unique piece of data that proves we are who we say we are. You know, it's easy to think of this as just a username, but it's so much more than that. It's like your digital fingerprint, totally unique to you. It's the key that unlocks everything. And just like your actual house key, you really don't want it falling into the wrong hands. So when you see that email or phone option, what you're really looking at are two different kinds of keys. Email is kind of like the old school, traditional house key, a digital address that's been the standard for decades. Your phone number? That's the modern key fob. It ties your identity to something you physically have with you, your device. But here's the thing. A door isn't just about letting you in. It's also about keeping the wrong people out. And that's where the locks and peepholes of our digital doorway come into play. All the security features designed to protect us and our information. Not your computer. Have you ever really stopped to think about that little question? That's a sign of a really smart security system. It's the digital version of a security guard noticing you're in an unfamiliar place and asking for an extra piece of ID just to be safe. It's context-aware security. And if you click on it, you get this option for guest mode, which is kind of like having a key that evaporates after you use it. You sign in using a private window, you do what you need to do, and the moment you close that window, poof, it's like you were never there. No history, no cookies, no trace left behind. Okay, let's talk about the fine print. Way down at the bottom, you've got these two little links, privacy and terms. And let's be honest, almost nobody clicks on them, right? But these are your peepholes. They're your chance to look through and see the rules of the house before you decide to step inside. They're worth a look. But look, no matter how good the locks are, we're all human. We mess up. We lose our keys. So what happens then? Well, any well-designed digital doorway has a plan for that exact situation, a support system to help you out when things go wrong. Oh man, we've all been there. That split second of sheer panic when you realize,